Hey guys, my name is Haley and today I'm here to finally film my favorite books of 2017. I have a top 7 of 2017 this year. Excuse my voice if it cracks, it's because it's the first time I've talked today because apparently really early in the morning is the only time that my family isn't home. Let's get started. By the way, these are not in any particular order because I struggled real hard trying to put them in order and then I gave up, so except maybe the top one is probably my favorite. My favorite. First book on my top 7 favorites is Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. This was an impulse buy for me. I had heard like 2 people talk about it when it first came out, and like I got it like a couple days after it first came out, I'm pretty sure, and I read it in like a day and a half, maybe even like a day. I know I read it really fast. It's written in a very strange format where it's a bunch of ghosts in a cemetery speaking to each other from like all different time periods. If you didn't know, this book is about Abraham Lincoln's son who passed away tragically when he was very young, and this book explores a more supernatural, like magical realism almost, look at if Lincoln came to visit his dead son in the cemetery. And it was really moving. It was very weird, but I really liked it. I honestly want to read more by George Saunders, like, pretty soon, because I really liked the writing in this too. Next up on my favorites is Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. I love this book so much. This is definitely my favorite of the trilogy, which I buddy read with Tina this year. Or last year. I love, honestly, the whole trilogy, but I had issues with Red Rising, and I really liked Morning Star, but this book was so, like, the political intrigue in this book was so good, and there's a bunch of plot twists in here that I, like, physically had to pick my jaw up from the ground and, like, put it back in place, because I didn't see it. I didn't see it coming. And I was really impressed. I will say Pierce Brown's writing takes a minute to get used to, so be prepared for that. But this is a high sci-fi, if you didn't know, and the society, it's almost dystopian, but like really, really far in the future dystopian, to the point that it's more like high sci-fi. The people are divided into caste systems based on colors, reds being the lowest and golds being the highest, and just the plot and the storyline of this book in particular is crazy, and I loved it so much. I can't wait to read Iron Gold. That just came in the mail the other day and I'm so excited. And this is actually one I don't know if I've really talked about on my channel at all because I read it during that break that I accidentally took. And that is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. So, this book has one of my favorite bookish buzzwords, I guess you could call it, which is the multiverse theory, which in its most basic state is every decision, like every single small decision you make, results in a different parallel universe. And this book takes that to a whole nother level. It's a thriller. It has a lot of science in it, but I found it pretty easy to understand, so I didn't have an issue with it. Honestly, I don't want to tell you anything else because you should just kind of go into it without really knowing a lot about it. I really didn't know that much about it when I picked it up, other than that a lot of people loved it, and now this is one of my favorite books of all time, so highly recommend. And then this past year, I finally read Mistborn. I read the original Mistborn trilogy. The rest of them are right there. I think this one was my favorite, but it's also kind of a little bit of a tie between this and the last one, which is The Well of Ascension. So, unpopular opinion that I don't think I said the one time that I've mentioned this since coming back to booktube, but I'm not a huge fan of Vin, which apparently a lot of people are. I really liked Elend in the first book, but as we saw more of him, he kind of got on my nerves because he's really bad at making decisions. But I love the side characters in this. I love Kelsier. I love Sazed so much. Sazed is my favorite character in this whole series, and I had very many emotions throughout the series because of him. Anytime I cried, it was literally because of Sazed. I love the whole crew from the first book with Ham and Breeze and Sazed and Kelsier, and I love all of them, and I love the world. The only thing I knew about this series going into it was the magic system, that you ingest metals and they give you certain powers. And somehow I was not spoiled for anything in this series, which is quite honestly amazing for such a big series. And I had a completely different idea of what it was about before I read it. But because of this series, I've actually bought like all of Sanderson's other books. As you might be able to see over here as a glimpse into my next book haul, I've got a bunch of Sanderson that I've bought, and I have more coming in the mail. So there will be a lot of Sanderson next year. Next is a book that I'm pretty sure I've talked a decent amount about on this channel, so it probably isn't a surprise, and that is Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. I love this series. I love Mia. I love the Darkin and the idea of them, even though we really don't know that much about them, and I'm 2 books into the series. I love this world. I love the side characters. I love the plot twists. I love Jay's writing. It's so sassy. I find it hilarious. Even a lot of people have issues with the footnotes, especially in this one, because there's a lot, but I found the footnotes hilarious, so I don't know why that bothers people so much. Maybe because it like takes you a second to go down and look, and that takes you out of the story a little bit. I don't know. If you don't know, this book is about Mia, who wants to get revenge for her father's death, so she joins an assassin school. And if that doesn't pique your interest, I don't know what will. This one especially has a very like almost divergent Hogwarts feel to it because it's a school, but there's like a little bit of magic in there, and other than that, they're basically being taught to become trained assassins. The teachers are great. The librarian is great. The students are really interesting. I love everything about it. To be completely honest, it's so good. Also, I will say this is sometimes classified as YA in like stores and online, and I'm like, this is not YA. This is more new adult. So I know Kate is one of those people that really tends to not like YA fantasy. So if this sounds interesting, you're worried about it being YA, it is not. I do not classify this YA in the slightest. Next up is probably one of the weirdest books I've ever read, but I fell in love with it during the month of October when I read it. And that is House of Leaves by Margzy Danielewski. This book is one of those books that gives you like very few answers, but so many weird things are happening that you're just like, what is going on? But it's so intriguing that you just keep reading anyway. That's how I felt reading this book. It's formatted very strangely with just like a bunch of blank pages with like 3 words on them, or there'll be like pages where the words are cut out like that, and sometimes in those extra boxes the words would be backwards. It's just very strange. In its most basic state, it's about this couple that moves into a house, and the house has this weird hallway that doesn't make sense from a spatial level from the outside. So it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, like the TARDIS from Doctor Who. This is very creepy. If you're prone to nightmares, don't read it at night, or don't read it at all, because it is pretty creepy. Like, I think this is one of the first books that I've actually had like any sort of nightmare or bad dream about. Like, it scared me at points, and it's very, very psychological, messes with your head type thing, but I loved it so much. And last but not least, can you guess it? Because judging by the book that's not on this list yet, my favorite book of the year is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Laini Taylor is my favorite author, or one of my favorite authors. I love her writing more than anything. It's just so beautiful. It's so stunning. I think her writing's gotten even better in this than it was in Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I love this world. I love Laszlo. I love that I really didn't know anything about this book before going into it, besides the fact that Laini wrote it. And honestly, I don't even want to give you a synopsis, because For one, the synopsis just doesn't make any sense. And two, it is a dual perspective narrative, but I feel like telling you who the second perspective is a very big spoiler. So, we're gonna focus on Laszlo. Laszlo is a book lover. He grew up in like this library, and he grows up learning about this city called Weep, which wasn't its original name, and he's dedicated his life to learning more about this city. And most people don't think that it exists until a convoy from Weep comes to his town, and they pick people to go back with him to help save the city. Because the issue is, Weep was not the city's original name. Its original name was erased from all knowledge in people's heads and books and anything, and it was replaced with the word Weep. And honestly, it's just so good. If you love fantasy, I guarantee you, if you love fantasy, if you love reading, you will love this book. It's just so whimsical, so moving, so well plotted, so well written. I love everything about it, and I can't wait for the second book. I will read you the back of the book. This is a very popular quote because that's normally how people summarize it because they don't want to give anything away. And that is, on the second Sabbath of 12th moon in the city of Weep, a girl fell from the sky. Her skin was blue, her blood was red. If that doesn't intrigue you, I don't know if I can convince you to read this. These are my favorite books from the year of 2017. Thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you guys next time.